The unfair advantage. Excellent. Hello, Kelvin, Jonck. Episode 5. Look at us. We're like basically professionals.
We've even got sponsors giving us fancy hats,
Absolutely.
mugs.
Look at this.
The unfair advantage.
Look at us. Look at us. For those who are listening, we have the most amazing hats that says Unfair Advantage. We have orange cups, mugs that say Unfair Advantage. If you want some of these mugs, just send a request to be on our show. Just go to you know.co.za and then, yeah, I don't know, just call one of us basically, and then we'll get you on and
Available,
get you some cool.
available soon in the Sweaty Yeti store.
That's also what we're doing, right? So many people have been saying they're loving our gear, the hoodies, the t-shirts, and whatnots, and want to get their own. So we're going to start making some of our own cool stuff, which is pretty exciting. But we have been going for 1 minute. We only have 15 minutes for these episodes. So I'm going to kick into episode 5. And episode 5, Kelvin, it's something that we talk about a lot of, and I'm going to open the floor to you. But just to set the scene is, we talk about technology and buying technology and the pros and the cons and the value and all the rest of it. I heard this beautiful quote by Peter Kuo from Amplitude a couple of weeks ago, and he said, people don't buy, or people shouldn't buy technology to save money. People should buy technology to grow. Right, which I thought was beautiful, and of course, sitting in our seats is very easy for us to go, yeah, of course, man. Buy the tech so you can grow. But a lot of people are sitting in different positions, and they don't really fully appreciate and understand what technology can do for them, because either they don't have the skill sets inside or the warm bodies to get stuff done. So we like to talk about this thing called this self-service analytics dilemma that a lot of companies experience, right? So I thought I'd maybe just open it to you to just share with our audience what this whole dilemma looks like and what it means and how it can be overcome.
So, I mean, interestingly, ever since we started the business 13 years ago, most everything that we've worked on from a technology perspective, I've had this vision that this needs to be used by the people in the businesses themselves. It shouldn't be used by one person and then put into a report and then sent across the company a month later and everybody tries. No, these analytics can change the way we work and the way we make decisions. And the only way of doing that is by democratizing access to that. So things have to be self-serve and easy to make it work. But there's different layers, right? And this is quite an interesting kind of talk about this, is we break down almost the ROI discussion around it, right? So imagine you've got this spectrum. So for everybody watching on YouTube, cool, you've got the graph. For everybody listening, imagine you have this spectrum of insights from the left to the right, from low to high. So on the left, you've got things like basic counts, trends, descriptive analytics, normal little KPI stuff. And on the right-hand side, you've got these deep exploration kind of insights, advanced stats, explanatory analytics, right? The really hardcore stuff that the smart people need to put together. So in a world without all the relevant tools, we have some very simple self-service analytics all the way on the left. We've spoken about them. The really easy ones, you log into a little dashboard, you see, oh, my volume is up. Great. My engagement rate is up. My fan count is up. My monthly active users is up or down, or whatever that is, right? And then on the right-hand side, on the high complexity side, you have these really intricate things. So imagining a CEO wanting a churn prediction model by Friday. That would fit into that bucket of work, stuff that the propeller heads have to really go in and knuckle down and get it going. Right? Now in the middle though, there's this middle layer, and it's this category of analytics that are not simple, but they're also not super complex. And for those, lots of analytics teams still require people like analysts and product managers and designers and everybody to kind of work together to get to these insights. And they are obviously important, otherwise nobody would be asking for them. So the question is, do you submit a ticket and you wait? And then the analytics teams need to go about answering those questions when they get to it. That's fine. That's probably the way that it's going to work now. But things are never really enough. So you have the system, some of it self-serve, some of it is a bit more complex, still need to brief a ticket, and then the third bucket on the right is this deep exploratory stuff that a lot of time needs to be spent on. But things are never enough. People are never satisfied, which is good. They need to keep asking more questions. So you'll have people on the left-hand side, on the low complexity side, always asking for just one more metric. Okay, cool, you've shown me volume, but what is my volume rate of change or something along those lines? Give me one more thing. So somebody has to then go and make that possible, either through tech or building dashboards or something of the sort. And they're always trying to ask more of that middle level as well, right? So those middle ones, as people's data literacy and I guess exposure to all of this creeps up, they're going to ask more complex questions. So therefore, everybody who's building those mid-level complex answers and questions have to spend a bit more time on that as well. But then there's also going to be, if you're doing a good job, the CEO and the C-suite and whoever's asking for these really deep research questions, they're going to say, that was amazing. I mean, now I want to see it in blue, or I want to see it, for a different region, or completely rethink that and add this new little variable in. So that never works, and that probably doubles in the time that's being spent as well, right?
We literally did that this morning in a team meeting. Is the guys were sharing really, really amazing insights that they'd gathered from our own data. And then you and I were like, oh, guys, that's awesome. Can we also see this? And can we also see that? Yeah. It happens in all kinds of businesses.
Right, exactly. It does. And then there's this duplicity of excitement, but also frustration. Like, guys, I've just done this. I'm glad you want more, but really, okay, why wasn't that in the brief in the first place? Well, because we didn't know which questions to ask until the answers come up. Absolutely seen everywhere. So what that means is there's, all these things are increasing, but there's limits on how far you can take it and how much manpower there is and time and resources there are. So you can only ask so many questions before you run out of time in the day or people or technology to be able to do this. So there's limits to that low complexity insights. There's limits to the high complexity insights. And then there's an analytics team that's completely overburdened in the middle, which are these kind of middle of the road, really important, but on self-service and on CEO level stuff. And that's becoming a little burden, and the tickets just keep adding up, and nobody really gets to fulfill that. So these demands that are placed on the system, the more downward pressure there is, if the CEO is asking for more stuff, then that's going to put this pressure on the middle level and the low level complexity insights. An interesting thing that happens here, though, is people stop asking for help, because when they start seeing that things aren't really coming out at the speed at which they want it, when the analysts are overloaded, the business managers, product managers, the social media managers, anybody that wanted these answers in the first place, they'll say, well, we've kind of given up on asking these deep questions because we just end up at the back of a queue and we don't really get there. So fine, we'll just we'll work with what we've got, and we're not going to ask too much of the situation. And then interestingly, the analysts and the data team and the BI team in the middle, they're like, ooh, questions have stopped coming in. So that's great. We've obviously got through our backlog and people are happy and things have leveled off. I guess we're doing a good job. When in actual fact, they maybe did do a good job, but that's not the reason why things are leveling off. People have just stopped asking. So you get this interesting dynamic where things seem stable, but they're not really stable, right? And so now imagine this curve that we fit across the whole graph. And you have this curve that fits the low complexity insights, which are high. Then there's a big drop in the middle, and then the high complexity insights start going high again as well. So it's almost like a U-shape curve. And in most companies, analysts cover most of the mid-level to high-level stuff. And then business users or other folks have access to the self-service stuff. And this is why it's important to dig into this, because when we talk about self-serve analytics, if all we're doing is extending these really simple insights, these kind of static dashboards to teams, it's self-service, but are they really able to self-serve and get answers to their questions? Because they're really just stuck in this little box on the right-hand side that's been defined for them and not able to really expand out of that. So, when you combine those curves, and unfortunately it's hard to explain if you're listening, but when you combine these curves, you have this really little curve that drops after low-level complexity and then stops. And then only from mid-level to high-level, it starts ramping up again. We've got this long tail or this big distribution for the analysts to have to cover, which is a little unsustainable. And so when you have really flexible self-service analytics, and you're on a drive to continue to expand those self-service analytics, there's a way to lessen the load. So with the correct kind of technologies, you increase the quantity of those low complexity self-service insights, and it's really easy to just kind of make that graph on the left-hand side just keep going up and up and up, because you're able to add more and more and more self-service stuff. But that frees up time, because those were mid-level questions, but now it's sitting in the self-service area. That frees up the time for the analyst to start servicing more of those really difficult to answer mid-level stuff, as well as the high complexity insights. And that gets even more interesting because the business managers start to be able to self-serve more complex questions themselves, which then allows them to potentially start asking more questions, more interesting questions, which pushes that whole graph towards the middle. So there's almost a space, if you can imagine it, of self-serve handling a lot of that mid-level complexity. So in the day of where everything is now gets an AI kind of pilot or co-pilot with it, imagine a person with absolutely no analytics skills being able to go in and say, oh, I woke up this morning and I'm really interested in being able to answer this question, which they wouldn't have been able to do before, but now they can. And if they get it wrong, maybe they can start collaborating with the analyst to achieve something more. But it gives them the freedom to start asking these more in-depth questions a little bit. Okay, so what that means is there's more increased data literacy on the left-hand side where the self-service is. There's more collaboration in the middle because the analysts and the business managers are starting to work a bit closer together because the analysts have more time as well to devote to that. And that kind of almost rolls up so that the C-suite are starting to ask a lot more complex questions of what was already complex questions as well. And the analysts are able to produce more of that. So the whole system moves up. Everybody is suddenly able to access a lot more and have a lot more capacity for insights. So instead of just throwing people at the problem and building bigger and bigger and bigger analytics teams, we believe that having more complex self-service tools frees up the game for everybody and allows questions to be answered. So it's this little virtuous loop in the middle over here, if anybody's watching, that happens where analysts become more product literate. The business managers, the product people, the marketers, they all become more data literate. Analysts get to spend more time on high leverage things. And then the business people, marketers, and the product people will get to spend more time on high leverage things, and awesome insights happen, big decisions happen. And that's the answer to the self-service dilemma in my view.
Amazing. So, I mean, in short, it gives capacity for everyone across the board to be able to answer, because the guys are going to still answer those very quick requirements, right? The self-serve, very short, punchy numbers that people need to answer. the smart cats are always going to be answering the big stuff, but it now allows more people to answer that middle gap that I think is everyone's missing. And then everyone keeps on growing, to go back to the very original quote that we started this episode on. Everyone grows in more ways. And I like, you'd said bringing in technologies to add to this, but it's also a data culture and permissions within a business. We can have the most amazing technologies in the world, but if the business isn't ready for making those decisions, I think that's also crucially important.
That, believe it or not, that's 15 minutes.
Done! Episode 5! Look at us, what champions. Kelvin, we need to sign off. Cheers to you, sir, and to you, sir. Episode 5 sorted. Have the most amazing day. We will see you for episode 6.
Thanks all. Bye.